Anyway, our very own Thomas is going to be talking to us and giving a peek inside the machine of entity matching in Pure, something which I know we all have come to know and love and want to know a lot more about. So over to you, Thomas.
Thanks, Graham. Love is a strong word here. There's perhaps tolerate is a better one. Okay, so it's always good to remember that we're here in the novice room. So we're not here in the advanced room. So the language is necessarily for us to speak in layman's terms and so on. So you're not going to hear much about machine learning or probabilistic determination and so on. So let's keep it high level. And I think one of the first things that we need to remember at this high level is for organizations specifically, what are they? Where do they come in? Where do we get bad quality data in? Where do we need to do this entity matching? And it's actually if you think about the world of science, not just from Pure, if you think about the process of an institution, its researchers creating content, each of those persons, unless the institute has a specific policy, may represent their own organization in different ways. So this is an example of a real publication with the same institute written in 3 different ways from the same researchers. And I know that the UvA has a policy against this. So I didn't want to rat on the researchers, but it's real data. And then this publication is submitted to a journal. That journal then submits it to, down the line, submits it to an index database such as Scopus, Web of Science, etc. And all of the names get combined, and who knows what comes out in the end. So those 3 points there are the cause of a lot of problems in the publishing sphere as a whole, but specifically for Pure. So if we think about data collection in Elsevier, we do have a privileged position because we are a publisher. So I'm speaking from the journals that Elsevier publishes in. These same 3 points, we do entity matching at all 3 of them. So when you submit an article to a journal, you're asked to provide identifiers, you're asked to provide a normalized institution name. And when that journal is submitted to, when that article is submitted to the journal, that information is checked again and again. And then when it's submitted to Scopus, it's again checked. So we have that advantage, but we know that Scopus doesn't cover every single, it covers every single Elsevier journal, but there's thousands more. Same with Web of Science, same with Dimensions. So we know that there are other databases out there. Another advantage that we have at Elsevier is we have the organization database, or OrgDB. So this OrgDB forms the backbone of the entity description, provision, and disambiguation process. And underneath OrgDB is OrgResolver. So OrgResolver is the real engine of doing the matching, the hardcore matching. And I'm not a like a data scientist, currently not a data scientist. I was at some point, but the technologies have moved on. There's a whole team dedicated to this. And OrgDB and OrgResolver feed into each other, feed upwards into the bigger research data platform. And then OrgDB feeds back into OrgResolver. So it's like this nice little circle where OrgResolver cleans up data, that clean data is served back, and then any new content that comes in is again resolved through OrgResolver and feeds. It's just an infinite loop of enrichment and disambiguation. So it's helpful to talk a little bit about specifically OrgResolver. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, it is built on OrgDB. So OrgDB is a collection of organization profiles, and there's over 77 million different names, including name variants, etc. So it's a vast database of all the different structures of organizations. And if you think the top 1,500 institutes in the world have been manually curated by the team such that the organization structure or the name variants are there. And these organization data are actually used in the Times Higher ranking, for example. So that information has to be good. It has to be correct. And it's not only used in the rankings, but also used in Cyvel for benchmarking, for example, or in repositories such as Pure and Chris's, and on the portal. So you may recognize it if you use Scopus, the 6ID. So I call them the 6 IDs. And if you go to Scopus and you see on the screen there, the MIT one has a nice identifier starting with 6. If it has a 6, it means that it has been defined and structured. If it has a 1, it means that that organization is either a recent addition to the database and they haven't quite clustered them all together to give it a 6 ID or to match it to a known 6 ID. And so OrgResolver is built on top of this database. And OrgResolver is a paid service. It's not just unique to Pure, which is important to remember. As I showed you, it actually feeds a lot of the Elsevier internal machines. But it's also available as a standalone API. We have a lot of customers, corporate customers, for example, use it to facilitate with their matching. And what it does, it provides normalized or canonical institution names. It has the Scopus identifiers, or the OrgDB identifiers, as we refer to them internally. It has hierarchies. These are manually checked by going to the websites and checking how does this organization fit into this department or this faculty into this institution. What is the relationship between partner institutions? So we have 13 different types of relationships between organizations, even partnerships, formal or informal. So it has a lot of data that you wouldn't think about necessarily. It has the ability, of course, to do multi-institute parsing. So you can send it a string with 15 different institutes in there, and it'll pick them out and present them separately. And of course, it has a lot of the additional metadata, such as the full addresses. It has a list of different identifiers. So there's 2 services, actually, one called ID Exchange, which provides the full hierarchy and other identifiers such as ROR or the old grid identifier, as well as Dun and Bradstreet. It has the Web of Science identifiers as well. So it's an encyclopedia of organization data. So how does it all fit together with Pure? So the way that we look at it is this is a perfect opportunity for OrgResolver and Pure to work such that OrgResolver resolves data that enriches your Pure. That makes matching the next time round easier for Pure. So it's resolve, enrich, resolve, enrich, resolve, enrich, just ad infinitum, a nice little circle of life for organizations. So when we look at, so I've talked a little bit about OrgResolver specifically, but how does OrgResolver fit into Pure in a practical sense, in a UI sense? So I'm sure you're all very familiar with the data quality interface and you use it every day. And yeah, there's but just to remind you, this is what it looks like here. We have data quality interface for external organizations and for journals, but we'll focus on external orgs. So 3 different sections here. We have the groups on the left, we have the list at the bottom, and then we have the preview section at the top. So I'll go through each of those separately. So starting with the groups. If you think about if you go to your master data tab and click on external organizations, you just get a string of org names just showing up, all the different names. And the way that we add groups into the data quality interface is we accumulate all the different or similar entities based on text similarities and similar identical identifiers. And we try to limit it to maximum of 50 entities in a group because you can have 200 entities in a group. And it's useful to remember that it's a graph of entities being connected to each other. So the one entity on the far end of the graph may have zero similarity with the other on the other end, but there are lots of these bridging entities that are similar to each other enough that they're connected into one giant graph. And we used cosine similarity for string matching, and we set it at an artificial level of 80%. We have the ability to boost it up or down depending on your confidence in your data. And a source ID equals a source ID, as in a Scopus ID has to match with a Scopus ID, not because weirdly enough, we have found examples of Web Science IDs matching with Scopus IDs. Same number, different source. And so the way it goes through, it's all managed through the content discovery, duplicate content discovery job. So if you're an admin, you'll be able to see the job running in the background. It's just constantly running. And it'll find all of the organizations that have some level of similarity in the name or the identifier. And then it'll create that into a group. And then you start creating the groups that you see in the interface. So this is very computationally cheap, relatively speaking, of course. And in the next step is where the more nuanced matching comes in, i.e. the more expensive one, the one that takes time. So coming on to the list and the matching strategy underlying all of this, if we take a group, we then compare all of those entities to each other in a matrix. So A is compared to AE, A is compared to AA, and we calculate how similar they are to each other on different fields that each of those records have. So we have the preferred identifiers such as Scopus, Web of Science, and so on, and then we have other identifiers. We have the address, that could be country, subdivision, street name even. We have the name itself, and of course the name variants. All of these are then compared to each other. And for the pair that's in the matrix there, that score for each of the elements here, it's given a certain number of points, saying if the ID is the same, you get 50 points. You also get subtractions, so punishment scores. We have the country, the identifiers are the same, the city is the same, but for some reason the country is different. Like we will punish that score, with the idea being that with the sum of the scores, when you look at your list, that's what you get where it says high, medium, or low. It's a very broad category, of course, but we do offer some transparency into the category. So if we think about the, coming back to the list, when you're looking at the list, you see that there's a target, and then you see a whole scrolling list of different organizations. This specific list here. You'll see at the top is the target. So how do we select the target? So the target is based on, is it a synchronized organization? When was it created? And how much content does it have related to it? So these are the specific order. So if it's not synchronized, then we look at the earliest version of that record or that entity. And if it matches, then we look at who has the most content and we present that as the target, because we think that's the organization you want to match into because you've been using it the longest or it has the most content and so on. So let's say that our target here is AV, and I'm comparing the high, medium, low match scores to all the other entities there. And you'll see here, if it's a high match, it's set to merge automatically because we want you to feel confident, and we give you the option to just click continue, and that's all you have to do, and it'll merge everything that's you've set to merge. We also want to offer some transparency into like how was this matched. So for example, in this case here, the name or alternative name had a high match. The address was missing information, and the associated ID was a perfect match. So we're quite confident that that could be a merge candidate. And as a user, if you go to the screen and you click on the match score, it'll give you that list. So you get an idea, okay, why did this match? And then we come to the preview. If you think about the preview, it really is a result of the target, and whatever you've signified should be merged into it. So in the case here, we have org AA, we have the street details, we have the country details, we have emails. And when you look at the target, there's actually only the country information. And when you look at the merge candidates, we have the street information. So you can see how your record has been built up in real time. Every time you click that merge button, more content is added if it's not there already. And with that little section of buttons there, it's always useful to remember that specific terminology, merge with target. So we're merging the candidates into the target. You can, of course, change the target if you feel it's the wrong one. So now tying in OrgResolver here. When we send content to OrgResolver, we send the strings, we send the address information, we send the name variants, and then OrgResolver comes back telling us what it thinks the organization is. We're working with the OrgResolver team so that they can provide us confidence levels, saying we're 80% confident that it's the same one. But at the moment, we just said either a match or no match. And we get ID information, we get name variation, we get full country and address information. And we take that information back into the data quality interface, and we use it. So looking again at another pair, AV and AE, for example. We know all the different fields that we've compared to previously. We know the scores on there, but now we have the option to add the OrgResolver result to this. And if it's a positive match on the identifiers that OrgResolver provides, we add another 80 points. And these 80 points can make a big difference because it can change it from a medium or low match to a high potential match. Because we use OrgResolver, the results from it, as an authoritative result. Like we trust the data that comes from OrgResolver. And with that, in your list view, your little, the merge button will automatically convert to as though you had selected it, with the idea being that it reduces the amount of time that you need to check and how many buttons you need to get things going. So OrgResolver, of course, fits in our nice little tree of life here, where we focus very specifically on the managing of data quality. So there's a lot more opportunity for OrgResolver, especially when it comes to the additional identifiers that ID Exchange has. So can we bring in Dun & Bradstreet identifiers? Can we bring in company house identifiers? All the different, the KVK for the Nederlanders here. So the ability to add and enrich this data is quite important in the future, and that is coming. And of course, the end goal really is the 5 Cs, as Chiara mentioned. So being able to have at least the complete and correct element covered with OrgResolver and data quality in general. And eventually, if the organization data or information is updated, then at least we can cover current as well. So there's no real compliant element here. It's just we're fetching information, so to speak. But if you think about the statement of Pure, so to help institutions rapidly unlock their research potential, when it comes to collaboration, we want that to be your true research potential. So I think I've been racing a mile a minute. Yeah, so that's it from me. I know that was very simple level, but thank you.
We've definitely got some time for questions. I know when I worked at a particular university, I had 64,000 different variants of my institution where I used to work. And the best one was A26, which was the building number, and Broadway, which was the street. Didn't even mention the university.
Yeah, so that's actually a good point, Graham, if I may say. So sometimes you'll get organizations that just say Department of Computer Science. There's OrgResolver, it's not a magical tool, it's a practical tool. So it'll just say no match found. If you're lucky, there may be only one Department of Computer Science in an obscure country, and it may actually provide a match saying, we think it's this institution because there is only one Department of Computer Science in that whole country. And then it'll give you a reply. But otherwise, it just says, sorry, can't help.
Super. Hi, Thomas. Just a quick question just on the OrgResolver. Is that similar, or is that like an add-on? Say with Scopus, you have the IPW access where you're able to tidy up your org structure to a certain extent. So is the OrgResolver like IPW 2.0? Or could you do that work in IPW and Scopus without using OrgResolver?
Yeah, so if you prefer to fix the data at source, i.e. Scopus, you still won't necessarily be addressing your own data in Pure. But the IPW is a great tool because it allows institutions to claim name variants and say, this is my name variant, please add it to my canonical version of my organization. So in essence, it's a manual intervention where OrgResolver can't do anything. And if you think about the 6 identifiers or the 1 identifier organizations, the IPW is a great tool for helping the vague ones, where it is Department of Computer Science, UC. So it's a manual intervention tool that the research data platform uses.
Follow up on that then. Would access to OrgResolver then enhance your profile more, or do you think would the IPW cover that off?
I think if you want to fetch content, so think of OrgResolver as managing your external orgs. Think of it as managing your collaboration views versus IPW as managing your own institution's representation.
Hi, Thomas.
Hey.
I come from an institution that manually adds a lot of content. So I was wondering, the target selection feature, could that be sort of incorporated in searching? So when they search for an external organization, it pushes it to the top?
Yeah.
Because obviously we see a lot of situation where people just add a new external organization because the one they're looking for isn't at the top of the.
Yeah. So I mean, it's the same with approved organizations, or how do we rank the results that a user would see when selecting external organizations? We're actually going to put one step further than that. Is as the user starts typing the name, it'll be referencing OrgResolver, and it'll select your approved organizations, and then compare it to OrgResolver. So it'll be finding the best one just as they type. So it's doing a check as the data has been inputted, because that's where the quality issues creep in, is at the point of entry. And so with OrgResolver, we'll have a synchronous API where you can just on import from any source. When you're manually creating a record, it's fetching content all the time for OrgResolver and matching it with your approved organizations. Hannah.
So this means that you need the OrgResolver, you need to pay in for the OrgResolver
Yes.
to get, so you're actually building a most wanted feature depending on another product.
No, so what Henrik was mentioning about approved organizations, that's outside of OrgResolver really.
Yeah.
But with OrgResolver, yes, as I mentioned, it is a paid service.
But your answer to his question was that it was improved by OrgResolver. So in that sense, we need to have OrgResolver.
No.
Okay.
Sorry, let me clarify then. So what Henrik, I think, was suggesting was that you would like your users to be only able to select approved organizations. Yeah. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. 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 And so what we could avoid as well is if the person is typing organization name that doesn't match your approved organizations, OrgResolver will still be able to convert it to the version that is your approved organization. Yeah. So you don't necessarily need OrgResolver for that. For that you do need OrgResolver, but for the approach of using your approved organization list only, that's outside of it here. Yes. Hi, sorry.
Hi. A suggestion regarding the data quality tab. So as it is today, it's like an alphabetical list of all external organizations, right? It would be
sorry, there's wait, let me just. Sorry, Graham, you're gonna have to go. I'll just use this one.
Yeah. So the idea is that I mean it's a lot of work going through all external organizations. That might be impossible, but it would be nice if you could sort of focus the list to a subset of external organizations. Let's say we have to do a report on this year's research projects and their collaborators, or the current year's publications. It would be nice if you could sort of filter the list to only include the external organizations related, so that you could focus on only a subset instead of going through all the organizations.
Yes, so you can do that to a certain degree already with the filters that are available. Sorry, Graham, I don't know what's happening here with. I'm trying to. Oh, let me just before it disappears. Yeah. So the filter here, you're able to select types of organizations. You can select match criteria. So there's ability already to process each group. And this is not, it's important, this is a group of entities. It's not a alphabetical list of all your organizations. It's just the name of the organization, but it's the likely target.
Yeah, but the idea is to turn it around and focus on the content and not the external organization.
Yeah, so the related content, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mean the graph of the related content and the organizations within?
Yeah, I only want to see the external organizations which are related to publications published in 2023, as an example.
That's an interesting one. Yeah.
I think I have a suggestion in Jira somewhere. But
I really like that idea.
Could I give a user comment? Because I use the new report module a lot for those kind of cleaning of the external organization. So that works pretty well. Then you can really filter out all the organization attached to a certain type of information, and also filter on those that is not yet approved. So then you see where you can go in.
So one thing we'd like to do, so following on Hannah's flow there, is no, because it's a nice workflow where you can use reporting, and if you click on the organization and you get the organization details, you can go to the Manage Duplicates tab. Ideally, you should be able to jump from there into the group in data quality so that all the duplicates are there presented for you to manage effectively. So it's about completing that last step. Yeah.
I think we're just about out of time, and Thomas has got a bit of coding to do based on suggestions. So thank you, Thomas. And
Thank you, everybody.